Major and minor aren't just chords, they're the most common keys to write songs in. You also have modes of the major scale, which can be used to create tonalities. These are sets of 7 chords, like a key, each with a unique sound that can be used to create progressions. Have a listen to this progression. What emotion does it make you feel? This all minor chord progression is purely from the A natural minor key. This is also known as the A Aeolian mode. It has a distinctive, gloomy and sad melancholy that is strongly associated with minor keys. In Roman numerals, it would be described as a 1-4-5 progression. This is one of 3 minor modes, the other 2 being Dorian and Phrygian. Let's have a look at the chords in these tonalities. You can see that they all share the 1 chord A minor and the flat 3 chord C major. But then the other chords vary depending on the tonality. Aeolian and Dorian are closer to each other than Phrygian, but these are all minor sounding modes. That's because of the shared 1 chord. This relationship means that you can write a song in one of these tonalities and borrow across chords from the other 2 minor sounding modes without many issues. With that in mind, let's expand our opening progression. I'll start with the A minor chord again, but then move to B flat major. This is a powerful Phrygian chord, and you'll hear it stand out straight away. Then I'll go back to A minor before moving to D major. This is a strongly Dorian sounding chord. You can hear its uplifting brightness. Then I'll finish with our purely Aeolian progression. Listen out for how the flavours of other modes are introduced for variety, but we always stay grounded with the minor sound. Chord progressions are the building blocks of songs. If you want some help with writing songs on the guitar, then sign up for my free weekly newsletter. Visit writeonguitar.com or click the link in the description to learn more. We had a look at the minor sounding modes, so what about something a bit happier? Let's now look at the major sounding modes. Have a listen to the next progression. How does it make you feel? This is a classic 1-4-5 progression in the key of C major. It has a bright, happy sound that is instantly recognisable. Compare it to the minor 1-4-5 that we started with, and you can immediately tell the difference. Major is also known as the Ionian mode. It is one of 3 major sounding modes, the other 2 being Lydian and Mixolydian. Let's compare the chords in these tonalities when C major is the 1 chord. You can see they all share C and A minor, but the other chords vary. Some of you might have also noticed that we've seen a lot of these chords before. That's because C major and A minor are relative keys. This means they use the same chords, just in a different order. This concept will come into play later in the video. For now, let's bring in a couple of these borrowed chords to enhance our progression. We'll start on C, then move to D major. This is the major 2 chord from Lydian, which creates a floaty spaciness. Then I'll bring in the flat 7 chord, B flat. This comes from Mixolydian and is a sound you will have heard. This chord is used widely in rock for a bit of bluesy toughness. Then I'll cycle through the 1-4-5 again to establish the major key. Borrowed chords inject some new emotion and surprise to our progressions, but they also allow you to do other things. For example, look at this progression. 1-7, flat 7, 6. This brings in the -7 from Lydian, and the flat 7 we already heard from Mixolydian. In this order, they create a descending stepwise bass line with the root notes of the chords moving from C to B to B flat to A. This, combined with the use of two minor chords, creates a spiralling, almost paranoid progression, which is a long way from the classic major sound. The lack of 5 chord also means it doesn't properly resolve, creating an interesting doom loop. Here's how that sounds. But it doesn't end there. Major is such a secure and stable key that it allows you to borrow from almost anywhere with few problems. We've heard the major sounding modes, but what about borrowing from those minor modes that we heard earlier? Doing this introduces a more dramatic, almost epic sound. This is due to the power of the minor third. Minor sounding modes have a flat or minor third note in them, whereas major sounding modes have a natural third. This conflict is what adds extra interest. In the next example, I'll use the same framework as example 4, but I'll borrow in 2 chords from minor sounding modes. First up, I'll use the dramatic flat 2 from Phrygian, D flat. We know the power of this chord from earlier, but now it is amplified against the major tonic. The other chord I'll bring in is an interesting one, the minor 4. This comes from the parallel minor key. Listen to the sombre feel it brings compared to the major 4, heard later on. Whilst borrowing across chords from other modes, you don't have to restrict yourself to just triads. You can also bring in 7th chords and even extended 9th chords and beyond. The options for each mode vary, and there isn't enough time to go through them all here. But because the chords for each tonality are constructed with notes exclusively from a particular mode, using chords with 4 or more notes will bring in a stronger feeling of that mode. It can also be the point of difference, which might not have been initially obvious with just triads. For example, the 1 tonic chord in major keys can be played as a major 7th, but the 1 tonic chord in Mixolydian is played as a dominant 7th, which has a very different vibe. In this next C major key example, I'll bring in a few of these ideas to give you a feel for things. First up, I'll bring in some familiar borrowed chords, but this time played as 7ths. D flat major 7 from C Phrygian, D dominant 7 from C Lydian, and B flat major 7 from C Mixolydian. Then I'll contrast 7th chords on the same root by borrowing C dominant 7th from Mixolydian and G major 7 from Lydian. Listen to the nice contrast that this brings. You can see how much nuance and variation we get when opening our progressions up to borrowed chords, but it is actually possible to go one step deeper with this concept. I highlighted earlier in the video the idea of relative keys, or tonalities, those which share the same set of chords but in a different order. As such, you can also borrow chords from the parallel keys of these relative keys and use them in your progressions. This sounds a bit confusing, so let's clarify things step by step now. When writing in the C major key, we know that we can borrow chords from the C minor key. These two are parallel keys. We also know that C major and A minor are relatives, because they share the same set of chords. Therefore, when writing in A minor, you can borrow from C minor. This opens up new options, such as the following 2-chord loop, 1 A minor to the borrowed flat 6 A flat. To make this easier to comprehend, the Roman numerals could be written as 1 and major 7, A minor to G sharp. Have a listen to the intrigue this brings in what is also known as secondary mixture. One of the most powerful chords we saw earlier, flat 2, comes from Phrygian. Watch the video on screen now to learn all about this powerful evil mode.